Hey, everybody, I'm Dan Bro, along with my co host, Matt Bruner, the Bruin Dog. Welcome to the Real Estate Heroes podcast, the stories and lessons from real estate wholesalers, investors, and professionals who are changing lives and making an impact so that we can help you become the real estate hero. And just a quick reminder, real quick, that this recording is an exclusive live event for our students only. And so they have the opportunity to ask questions and get answers to their biggest questions. So if you want to be one of those lucky few, head over to actiondanbro.com and schedule a call or sign up. Today, I'd like to welcome Derrick Acuff. This guy is an absolute animal. You've probably seen him on a bunch of other podcasts or seen his social media. Been in the game for over 3 years, has done over 100 deals. He's building his renter portfolio. He's got a ton of awesome content on YouTube, Instagram. FlippingAHouse is his handle on Instagram. Derrick, super grateful to have you on.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate the invite, and hopefully I can drop some gems today for your students and for anybody listening.
Absolutely. That'd be great. So, anyone who doesn't know, let's dig into your story. How did you get started in real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always like to take it back to where I'm from because I think relatability is key, especially for anybody who wants to get in this business and be successful. And I try to be relatable. So I grew up in East Tennessee, small town of like 10,000 people. Spent a lot of my summers like hauling hay and doing a lot of labor work, things that a lot of my friends were not doing. Learned a lot of life lessons. And then when I was in high school, I used to come visit Houston on and off growing up. When I was in high school, my dad worked for a very wealthy individual. And when I was there one time, I was talking with some of the people there and they were doing real estate deals and all this cool stuff. But basically, that was the first time I ever heard that you don't necessarily have to go to college to be successful. And that one little moment kind of changed my whole trajectory of my life because I decided I got to get out of my small town. I need to be around wealthy individuals. So that was at like 17, and around 19, I packed up my car with like $1,000 and all the stuff I could fit in my Chevy Impala. And I hit the road and moved 16 hours away to Houston. And I was still, going down the college path, and I was about to graduate with my associate's degree, and I was looking to go to the University of Houston. I was going to be a petroleum engineer. That was like my whole life plan. And then I figured, later down the road, I would get into real estate. I just always had this fascination with it, played a lot of Monopoly growing up. And so on my last semester, I went to one of those seminars, the get rich, get into real estate. I'm not going to say the name, but it's a big one. And you basically end up in the sales funnel. You go to the free event, then you go to the weekend event. At the time, I didn't even have the $500 for the weekend event, but my friend covered it. He didn't even end up going to the event. Only I did with me and my girl. So we went. And at that seminar that weekend, I learned about real estate wholesaling, and that kind of, I would say, opened the door to my, journey down real estate. I finished that semester, got my associate's degree, and then basically I decided I was going to take 2 years off and try to do this real estate thing. And that was about almost 6 years ago now. So that's kind of where it all started. And, I'd be happy to go into more detail, but that's just kind of like, those little things that kind of led me down this, bigger path of getting into real estate at a younger age and all that I've been able to accomplish. And I feel like I'm just getting started.
Man, that's awesome. So, at a pretty young age, it sounds like you learned the importance of being surrounded by the right people. You had your dad and who he worked for, and all those guys. They were just connected with one another, all in the real estate game, it sounds like. And so it sounds like you learned from a pretty early age that everyone, it's tried and true. It's maybe over a little out. What was the word for it? A little worn out, but your net worth is your net worth. And sounds like you learned that from a pretty young age.
Yeah. I think I had a couple, I think they talk about this on Bigger Pockets a lot, but everybody has a disadvantage that, or an unfair advantage, whatever that may be. It looks a lot different. For me, I think that was in high school. One of my best friends, even in my small town, his dad owned a bunch of Domino's, right? Franchises. And I live with my mom. She was a single mom. And I kind of like lived the rich dad, poor dad, you know what I mean? Not that he was super wealthy, but he was a business owner. He was a capitalist. this. My mom was not so much. She had always worked hard jobs. She was a hard worker, but I was always very self-aware, and I saw what she had and what he had, and what he had was freedom. And then when I moved here, and my dad just so happened to work for this wealthy guy, and hearing those things and then physically seeing it too. I think that's what's so important, is I didn't just hear it from these guys. Like, I went to a penthouse where you got to have a guy on the elevator just to even get off, and then they have like Rolexes and McLarens and like cars that cost more than my mom's house. And it's like, when you see these things, I always say expansion equals exposure equals expansion. So once I saw these things, I couldn't go back to going back to my small town. And just most of the people I graduated with, they either work in a factory or Walmart, and that's totally fine. I just always wanted more for my life, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to accomplish that if I wasn't surrounded by the people that were actually doing those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I gotta say, petroleum engineer, real estate investor, little different.
Very different.
Little
Very
different. So what was that one thing that just clicked for you, and you're like, yeah, petroleum engineer, probably not what I want to do, and this real estate thing, I got to give it a shot?
Looking back, I don't think I ever really wanted to be a petroleum engineer. I just wanted to be, I didn't want to have to worry about money, even if that didn't mean I was super rich. I saw how hard my mom worked and other people in my family, and as hard as they worked to what they had, I just never wanted that. And I think, like I said, I grew up playing the Monopoly. I was always had this, I was always intrigued by real estate, but really I hated college, man. And I don't want to tell people not to go to college. What I learned was that college just wasn't for me. I made myself go to school. I paid my way. Like, it took me a lot longer just to get that 2-year degree, but I was trying to force, a square peg in a round hole. And what I learned when I stopped school was that I didn't like learning, and that wasn't the issue. I love learning. It was that I was learning the wrong things. And as soon as I got into real estate, I mean, I've read more books, podcasts. I'm always watching content, like just trying to learn, not just real estate, other businesses. So I think, for me, it wasn't that I just never really wanted to be a petroleum engineer. I was good at math and science. And so I was like, math and science, make a lot of money, move to Houston. It's prevalent in oil and gas. You'll get a 6-figure job minimum. And then when you're in your 30s, you'll be able to buy some real estate and start down that path. So I don't think it was that I wanted to be a petroleum engineer. I think I just wanted what I thought, being a petroleum engineer would bring me, which was real estate at the end of the day, which is, crazy how that works.
Yeah, man. Like, it's so funny to me how many people are told the same story. Like, go to college, get a good job, and then you can get to invest in real estate. When in reality, you can just cut out that first step. Like, you just have to do it. So that's cool. Thank you for sharing how you kind of got here. What are you doing now, man? Like, what does your business look like right now? And how is that going?
Yeah. So, which I'm sure we'll get into. I started out with the wholesaling, and, today, honestly, I'm live up more to my Instagram handle of like flipping. We're doing a lot of flipping. Like, I think we have like 11 projects going on right now. Not all of those are flips. Some of those we're keeping. So I have that going on. We're doing a lot of rehab. Some we're selling as is. I just have to close on them. We're still doing a little bit of wholesaling. And then, I have a business partner. Me and him are building our own single family portfolios of rentals. And then we also, over the last year, created a new company, and we're doing, our plan is to do, BRRRRs and then turn those into short-term rentals in this very highly gentrifying area in Houston that's called Fifth Ward. And they just announced like they broke ground on a huge development. So my whole thing is, owning real estate, but also building capital as quick as possible, because the market is hot. But it would be a mix right now of a little bit of wholesaling, a lot of flipping, and then keeping some rentals and building, those portfolios separately. And then, as I make more money, getting into other opportunities like we talked about. I really enjoy making content and just showing people, this is, anybody can do this. I waited tables before I got into real estate. So it's like, I'm the most normal person. I took that hard work ethic that I was taught and combined that with getting around smarter people like we discussed.
It's awesome. And then, so out of those 11 deals, like, what are you finding is working best to like source those deals? So what sort of marketing channels are you doing?
Yeah, so for us, we have three, well, I say four main marketing channels. First would be cold calling. Everybody's doing cold calling. We do some texting as well, even though, they're starting to crack down on things like that. And then we do a lot of SEO, like search engine optimization. And then honestly, the fourth would be the most powerful, or has outperformed recently. And we were talking about this before we got on, is social media, man. I get a lot of deals from social media. Like the last 10 that we've probably gotten, I would say 5 of those have been from social media. Just sharing the journey. I know people get annoyed following me because they're like, this guy's always buying houses, but I need people to know what I'm doing. I actually, before this interview, just left a house that somebody sent me. He works with one of my friends. He knows what I do. He knows that I'm building this reputation of, I'm going to do what I say. I'm going to make sure everyone gets paid. So social media has really taken off over the last year, and what it's able to bring. And I love those deals, more so, to be honest, because a lot of the people that we're dealing with is newer people. So a lot of times it's their first deal. So out of those 5, that we got, 3 of those I think are people's first deal. And one of the houses I locked up was one of those. It's going to be a guy's first wholesale deal. And, I love those deals. Not only do we get to make a lot of money from it, but seeing someone, like, when it becomes real and they hold that check or the wire hits, it's like, this could really change my life. I know that's what it did for me.
Yeah, man, that stuff, that first deal is super exciting. And being able to help someone get that first deal is also super exciting. That's one of the things I love, being able to help people who already have the drive and the motivation and the want, and then just helping them connect the dots. So that's awesome that you're doing that too, man. So, your social media stuff, you're saying you're getting a ton of deals from it. I mean, I'm curious personally, and I think other, our listeners and students will be interested as well. Like, what are you finding to be most effective in the content you're putting out? Like, what kind of stuff are you doing that leads to those deals coming into you?
Yeah, so it's funny because a lot of my friends who've been doing this business, like, they're starting to get wind, and they've seen me go from, 0 to whatever many followers and all this. And I think honestly, all I do, because there's so much fluff on the internet, as we see, right? Especially when you've been in this business, you can usually tell who's doing deals and who's not quickly. And, that's just part of the internet. But I think by authentically being myself, people relate with that, right? And on top of that, people have seen my journey, basically from, I think I was like 2 years in when I really started like taking social media serious, just sharing what I'm doing, going to houses. And people have seen that from like me doing a couple of deals to like I'm buying like 5-6 houses a month or whatever it may be now. I think by sharing that along the way, and it's easier for guys like us, and I tell all my friends this, when you're in the business, it's easy to just share your journey, whether that's just picking up a camera, or I'm just at a house, or 2 weeks ago I broke into a house and I just took people with me. Like just doing evictions, like everything that we do, because I think a lot of people can find value in the small things that we don't find important. But I think it's also, you have to break through the noise by being consistent every day. Like I post every single day, and I make sure, because what people don't understand is you have to break through the noise. We have TikTok, we have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have all these platforms. Most people are consumers, right? So as a person that's a producer, you have to be just as consistent as TV channels, TV shows, YouTubers, right? Like all of my favorite people that I watch on YouTube are dropping 2 videos a week, and they've done that for years, right? So what does that tell me? I have to do that if I'm going to play in this arena. So with that point being, is just, you have to be extremely consistent, but I think you have to be authentic. And every time I close a deal with someone that's new, especially, like I brag about it on Facebook every time. Not only am I genuinely happy, I want people to see this person get their first deal, right? Because I know the struggles they've went through, the doubt that they've faced, their family members telling them this is a scam. I want all of them. I want this post to shut them up. And then two, they see that, okay, even if they doubt it, they go look at my page and they're like, oh snap, maybe he really did close this deal. And then on top of that, it opens up the door to, oh, well, actually my cousin has a house and now I'm doing another deal. Every time I post a deal or that I close the deal, I get at least minimum 3 leads. Now I don't always convert those leads, but at minimum, on average, like sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 1. It would average out to 3 leads that I get. But that's 3 more opportunities of people that are like, oh snap, Derrick helped this person, Derrick helped this. And all I'm doing, some people may think it's bragging, but I'm literally just sharing the good that I'm doing, because I think so many times people look at wholesalers and people as we're doing something wrong. There is, like, we are looked at as leeches, and the amount of work that we have to do, wholesalers have to do more work than anybody. And this is from somebody who's done it all, up to developments. But it's like, nobody's gonna, like, the things that I'm sure you guys do, that we do, like getting people mechanics, I've moved people, I've cleaned, like, you can name it, I've done it. But that's also probably why we've had the success that we've had. We try to be genuine people and actually take care of people. And when you share that on social media, I always make the joke that, like, if I got to look at your cat and your kid and all this other crap, you can see that I'm buying a house, that I helped this person. And when you do decide to sell, or if you're ever having that conversation and you remember me, then it worked.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So, I mean, super powerful stuff, because right now, I mean, with the way the market's been, a lot of people, wholesalers, flippers, landlords, they're hurting for leads. And if you can leverage your social media platforms to get free leads, like, really, they're free. It costs you time, sure, but you're not paying out of pocket for those. And those leads are often some of the best leads you can get, because they might not be on any list. They're not, actively talking with other people all the time. Those are the best type of leads you can get. That's why I love TV leads, because they are some of the hottest leads. They're motivated. There's almost no competition on them. But there's also that barrier to entry, because it's more expensive to do TV. But there's also, for you, like, same thing with social media, there's that barrier to entry, because a lot of people just don't take the time to do it, or do it consistently. So, that's awesome to see that you're having great success with it, and just showing that, hey, it actually works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's definitely important. And I would love to talk more, offline about the TV stuff, because it's the same when you get SEO leads, right? Like, the reason Ben and I, I think out of 7 leads, we'll convert 1, which is a really good turnover especially for SEO. And, we spend so much money to do it. But a lot of times, our page is very personable. If you pull it up, it's just me and Ben in front of a house doing what we do, right? Yeah. So then one of us comes to talk to you, you've seen us, you already feel comfortable. And then on top of that, you go look at our page and it's like, we have 30 plus 5-star reviews, right? That rapport has already been built for you. And it's the same with social media. People, they're getting calls, they're getting letters, but when there's no better lead than a referral lead, right? Because somebody has already spoke about your good graces. Then I think internet would be the next best, but when somebody tells you, and that's how you're going to survive. Like, don't get me wrong, we get a lot of deals from our other marketing, but those deals seem to be a lot better when they come from somebody else that's a referral, and they know, like, and trust your name, and they know you're going to get it done too. That's the thing, is people have uncertainty. Are you going to get the deal closed? Like, if I tell a seller, like, I'm going to close a deal, I'm going to close a deal. Like, we've done over 100 deals, and I've only had to have that conversation twice with people. One person, I had to back out. He didn't want to take my lower offer. The other lady, she decided to lower. But, we try to do all the work up front. We try to set ourselves apart and do what we say we're going to do.
Yeah, that's super important. I really respect that, because I know there are some people out there that just say, lock it up at whatever price you can and then negotiate it down later. And I personally hate that. That's what gives a lot of wholesalers a bad name. And it makes it difficult for anyone who's coming in with a reasonable model, where, like, we're only going to lock it up if we know we can close on it or assign it. And then they just have this bad taste in their mouth from the last buyer. And they think that we're going to do that same thing. So it's just like another thing for us to overcome. So yeah, as far as the referral is one of the best leads. Totally agree. You know, if someone else already has good things to say about you, it's it's the best lead in you can get. It's the warmest of the warm leads you can get. So that's awesome.
Mhm. No, absolutely. And I mean, and we can go into it, I could talk about wholesaling all day because, it literally changed my life. And I think so many people, they go about it the wrong way, and that, there is a right way to do it ethically and, be honest with the seller. And 90% of the time, the seller doesn't care what you're doing with the house. They know you're making money. It's more about being direct with them. And, a lot of people aren't. The deal that we locked up last night, like I said, it's all the things that we're talking about combined. It's a newer guy. He's been following me. He brought me this house. Amazing deal. The house is worth 300,000. We locked it up for 150. We're going to put about 40 into it and be in and out, but
Wow.
it's a referral lead. The numbers are amazing. The lady this house is an hour and 5 minutes. If you guys have no relation of how big Houston is, it takes you 30 minutes to get anywhere. So it took me about an hour to get out there, a little over. And I walked this house a month ago, and they were trying to sell two. The first one, the numbers they wanted outrageous. The second house, those were the numbers that they gave me. I didn't fight her. Like, I thought those numbers were amazing. But what happened was the realtor was really excited at first, and then I could tell she started to fade away, right? She was asking all the right questions, and then she was like, oh no, these things came up. So for 4 weeks, right, the last 4 weeks, every day on Monday, hey Jenny, how you doing? Just following up. Any new info? Nothing. Oh, we're waiting on this. It's always an excuse. Yesterday, Labor Day messed it up, or it was on Wednesday. I just texted her, same thing. Hey Jenny, any update? She said he's ready to sell. And I was like, great. And then her next question was, are you wholesaling it? Right. So what does that tell me? She's been these 4 weeks that she didn't want to give me an answer. She was dealing with another wholesaler that made her outrageous promises. And, when I can come in and, obviously it's a little different when you're buying, but even I could wholesale this house for probably 170. But, now I'm in a position where I can squeeze a little bit more money, be a little bit more patient. But the wholesaler had a deal if he would have known what he was doing and, how to go about that correctly. And, realtors 90% of the time don't even know you're wholesaling anyway. They're taught to be a realtor. They don't know what assigning means, but there's ways to explain things to people and to do it the right way. And I think so many people go about it the wrong way, which is what gives all of us a bad name. Like you said, locking up houses, like the house is worth 200 and you're locking it up at 190. Like, that's not a deal, and that's why I also put out content. I want to change the way people are perceived, especially when it comes to wholesaling, because like I said, wholesaling will always have a special place in my heart, and I hate that it gets such a bad name because people don't know half the crap that we go through to get some of these deals closed, man.
Yeah. What do you mean? It's not all sunshine and rainbows?
Yeah, right. It's not unicorns and sparkles and all
Yeah.
that good stuff.
So let's dig into that a little bit. Can you tell me, what did it look like for you when you first started wholesaling?
Got you. So I think this is great because me and my partner were talking about this morning, because I think we met around year 3.5, and we were kind of at the same place, but those first 2 years were rough for me. So I told you I went to the seminar, and that was in February. In June, I graduated with my associates. I was going to take this time off, and then I didn't do anything for that was February, so basically 8 months. I think it was like November before I did anything. I was Mr. Bigger Pockets and podcasts like this, and I knew everything and never had done anything. And one day my now fiance was very upset that day, and the one thing is she's a straight shooter like myself, and she just said, hey, I need you to either take action about real estate. You quit college, you did all this, you sold me the dream, but you haven't done anything. So either take action or, just shut the F up about it and let's never talk about it again. And we'll just act like this didn't happen. You can go back to college, get a good job, and we'll get back on that path. But what that did was, it motivated me to take action. So I sent out like 30 letters. I got this lady that was super motivated in December, the end of December. Loved me. I built great rapport. I offered her way too low. I just had no idea what I was doing. But that kind of like sparked like, oh, like this isn't as hard as I'm making it out to be, but also it's attainable. So that was in December. And then in January, I just, any free time, any extra money, I think my budget was like $200 a month. I just was trying to get leads. And so from that time, from January to June, I went on a lot of appointments. I think I went on 20 plus appointments, took a lot of rejection, just learning, right? And I had met a mentor along the way, and just was bringing him deals, and he would help me try to close them. And finally, on my 24th birthday, I got the news that we had locked up the one. He had already sold it, which is crazy, because in those 6 months I was so positive, but like the week before I had just like hit a wall. Like I was just mentally, like I call it my 5 feet from gold moment. I was just ready to give up. And once again, my girl, I was in the kitchen. I had a full mental breakdown. Like I'm a big dude and I'm like crying like a baby in my kitchen. Like I'm a failure. I quit college. Like I did all this stuff and it's not working. Right. And, she just held me like a little baby and was like, look, we've been doing this. We know someone who's doing it. It's possible. You just got to keep going. And literally 2 days later, 3 days later, I went on an appointment. And then, 7 days later was my birthday and I locked up that deal. And that just made it real. But those next 2 years, I was waiting tables. I worked for about 2 more months and then I quit my job. And those next year and a half was just basically a roller coaster of up and down, making money, quit marketing, go broke, right? Start marketing again, get another deal, get comfortable, quit marketing, change marketing. And I was just being so inconsistent. And I just basically, after the second or third time of like going broke, like I just started JVing with everybody, hustling my way out of it. And around that time, I started working with my business partner and we just started doing deals together. And, he had a full-time job. And after that, we had I think like 70 grand in the pipeline. And I'm like, bro, you're working a job. I'm doing all the footwork, which is fine. But if we're doing this with you with a job, imagine what we could do, if you work and you help me full time. And then, since then this has been a journey, man, just wholesaling to buying rentals to flipping to, everything else that we're doing. But it was a struggle though, those first 2 years, not even gonna lie. There was like 6 months where me, my girl and my son, like we ate ramen like every day. Like we were having shrimp for breakfast, steak for lunch, and chili lime for dinner. Like it was not good, you know what I mean? And as a man, when you're supposed to be the provider and your girl's paying all the bills, you feel like a dirtbag on top of it. But that's it seems so long ago. Like this is why most people don't make it, right? Like most people's girl or spouse isn't going to support them. Most people would give up. There were a couple times where I almost got a job again, and like my mentor would pay me some money and just be like, bro, you got to figure it out, and that's, it's simple, but it's not easy. And most people aren't going to do, we live in this social media, like people see me and it's like, I've been doing this for almost 6 years. Just because you just found me doesn't mean that I haven't been struggling this whole time. And I still struggle, but it's just, it's a journey, man. And those first 2 to 3 years were rough for sure.
Man, I appreciate you sharing that. I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. When I was going through my most difficult, stressful, financially challenging time in my life, I was talking with my uncle who he used to be, so a lot of people know Traction, like the and EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So they're actually a worldwide organization. My uncle used to be the chairman, the global chairman for this company. So he knew a lot of people, a lot of very successful entrepreneurs. I was talking with him and he said, Dan, I know a lot of very successful business owners. And this is when I was going through my worst stuff, me personally. And he said, every single person I know that is really successful has gone through exactly what you're talking about right now. And I know it doesn't make you feel better. It doesn't change what's happening right now, but just know that it's part of the process. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that you were able to keep going, like, it's so important, because it's not avoiding failure. It's not avoiding challenge that leads to success. It is going through it. It is continuing on. And like, it's the hardest thing, because you're struggling, you're down on yourself, it's not working, and you just want to stop. I get it. I've been there, man. So the fact that you had those people around you, and that's what helped me. The people around you, like you're talking about your girl. I hope you're still with her. She sounds amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm not surprised by that. But having those people around you, because it's not about doing it yourself. Like no one who's achieved anything of significance, and you're a testament to that, has done it all on their own. It just doesn't work that way. And so the fact that you had those people around you helping you, to push you through, to hold your hand when you needed it, and gave you that motivation when you needed it, and that drive to keep pushing forward. Like for anyone listening right now, like it's not all on you. Like, yes, you still have to keep working, but you don't have to do it alone. So, I mean, Derrick is a testament to that. He pushed through, but he also relied on others. And there were times where he questioned himself. Like, not everybody that you see is all like so confident all the time and so disciplined 24/7 every single day, and waking up at 3:30 a.m. every single day, and working 18 hours a day. That's not reality. Like we all have down days, and it's not about showing up with a gold medal every single day. Sometimes it's just about showing up, and sometimes it's about showing up and giving a crappy performance, but at least you did it and you didn't stop. So, I mean, that's awesome that you kept going, and that you can look back on it now so positively as such an important part of your journey.
Yeah. And I think one thing people need to understand, to touch on what you just said, is like, I don't want people to see us talking and think that we still don't go through those struggles. They just look different. Our problems are just bigger, right? Like this week I've been through 20 emotions. We had an eviction. I had a deal fall apart. I have another one with title issues. I have a new deal that we locked up. Like I could give you a million. I've lost one of my contractors quit on me. Like I had to hire new. Like I can give you the range of emotions that I've been through this week alone. My phone's blowing up right now. I'm sure there's another problem or three I got to solve, but I think that we get better at handling it. And like you build that muscle of, it's just like, I'm a huge Jim Rohn. Like my kids, my wife has listened to any Jim Rohn. Like I forced them to, because those old school lessons of like, it doesn't get easier, you get better. If I can let my kids learn that at 9 rather than at 19, like I did, they'll be so much farther ahead. And people need to understand it doesn't get any easier. Like there's times a few months ago, like we have so many flips, but flipping is a cash intensive business. We're broke, but I got to pay myself, pay my family. Like there's so many problems that people don't see. They just see social media, which is the highlight reel, which is also why I try to share as much as I can with people, so they see all the good and the bad, right? Like I know sometimes people probably feel like I'm complaining, but I'm not complaining. I'm just sharing, like, this is what happened today, right? Like I just want you guys to understand, like, this is going to happen to you, but here's how you can handle it. And I always just say, like, I'm a huge like Nemo fan and everything. Like, you just got to keep swimming. Like, you just have to keep swimming, because if you stop, that's when you die, right? Like, that's when you start getting beat up. And like, as long as you stay in motion, you're good. And there's so many days, like, I love knowing that every day is a fresh start, right? And there are days, and like my girl sees it, and she just lets me be, right? Like I'm a turtle. I just don't want to talk to anybody. I'm beat up, but the next day I'm going to hit the ground running. But it's just like she has to realize like all the things that I'm managing, and she's great at that. And like, now to bring it full circle, like after Corona, my girl went back to work for like a couple weeks, and I was like, you got to quit your job. We just had a baby, like just be a mom, and like just to see our growth together, like, those people, like you said, you have to do it as a tribe. And a lot of people you start with, you're not going to finish with. And, my biggest lesson that I think I've learned over the last year, and I'm still learning, is like, don't take anything personal. Everybody has their own interests at heart. And a lot of people want to see you win, and a lot of people don't. And some think they do. And then you start doing better than them, and now it doesn't work. You know what I mean? So, those are just some things I definitely wanted to add, because it doesn't get easier, man. It's just bigger problems. You really learn to handle it a lot better.
I love that. I think "just keep swimming" just became my favorite catchphrase. So just wanted to say thank you for that.
Yeah, I got
um,
one. Not to cut you off, I got one even better. Is because me and my girl have this weird Mac Miller like tie, but like he has a tweet, an old one, that says "Stop keeping score, just keep swimming." And I like that one even better because it's just a reminder to like just run your own race, and just keep running though.
I love that. I've been thinking about what quote should go on my wall, and I think I just figured that out. So thank you.
Nice.
That's awesome, man. So let's talk about this. So you pushed through the paralysis by analysis phase, which we've already discussed. Almost everybody goes through that. After you got out of that phase, like what were some of the biggest mistakes you made? And then what did you learn from those mistakes?
Yeah, I think because I this is something I try to harp on is pretty easy. I think it's like after that, right? What is it they call it, like the sophomore curse or whatever it is, where like after you do your first deal, doing deals consistently. It's like as soon as that first deal closes, the pressure sets in of like, I got to do this again. How am I going to do this again? I think the first being, like I said, I hated my job. Management had changed. I've never done good with authority. I had a lot of freedom as a kid, like I said, growing up in the country, so it just all ties in. But I quit my job, and it's not hard to replace like 40 grand a year, especially in real estate. That's like 2 deals if you do them right. But at the time, I had no exit plan. Which is good and bad, right? I don't recommend this for everybody. I perform better when my back is against the wall because naturally I'm a lazy person. Like I know that about myself. I'm not the get up at 4 a.m. guy. Like I start my day at like 6:45, 7, and then I still drag around to 8 and then I'll go to the gym, right? Like that's not me, but I'm very self-aware. But I don't advise that for people, right? I should have kept my job for another 6 months while I built this business on the side. But that was my journey, right? That's what I did. Luckily, my girl made a lot of money. She was able to cover the bills. Not everybody's going to be in that situation. So I think the first mistake I did was I quit my job way too soon. On top of that, like I said, I didn't have an exit plan. Like I had no money saved. Like I went to Mexico for like 7 days and was like, I'll figure it out when I get home. Like I'm quitting my job. Like, let's do this. The next thing I wasn't consistent enough when people like, because I see in all the posts and everything in groups and Facebook and Instagram is like, oh, I'm not getting deals, but they're doing 20 things, right? So they lack focus and consistency. They don't pick one thing. They're trying to chase like 3 rabbits and they catch none. So you need to focus on one thing and be very good at it and so consistent that you have no option but to succeed. And I was I would get money and then it's like, oh, I made 10 grand this month and then I quit marketing. And then like, once you stop that ball from rolling, you got to start that momentum all over. And I did that dance for like at least a good year and a half of trying to figure it out, make money, you know what I mean? Live below my means. And then, that's a whole nother topic. Like I had a lot of, I thought I was financially literate and there was a lot of things that I needed to learn. I think that goes into having the exit plan though, right? Putting yourself in a better position. Like people need to realize, like people think that you start a business and you just start making money. Like all of it's like net profit, right? And as we all know, like that's not it. Like the gross profit is cool, but the net, like what you actually take home and keep, that's very hard to manage when you're not good at managing money alone and you're trying to, scale up. So I think by being consistent, starting where you're at, keeping your job, having an exit plan, live below your means. I can't preach that enough. I think, watching a lot of Dave Ramsey, I believe in some of the stuff he teaches, but, obviously debt should be used to be leverage. We're real estate people, but so many people in America fail because they're chasing what other people have, right? They have the expensive car notes, they have the expensive house, but they own nothing, right? They have designer clothes, but they're $50,000 in debt. There's so many things that you could do to get ahead that aren't really that won't change your lifestyle that much. It's just ego won't let you live below your means, right? You're worried about like my son, right? All the kids that we hang out with and like our friends with the family, they're like 10, 15, 20 years older than us. But yet, we play expensive sports. We do a lot of things that they do, but yet they get in my car and they're like, why is your car so old? And I'm like, because I don't have a car note and your mom does. You know what I mean? It's like these little things that can really set you ahead. So I think by having like a good exit plan, being consistent, being prepared, right? Most people just aren't. And then they get mad when it doesn't work. And it's like, you just weren't willing to make sacrifices. Like after that, in that year and a half, we cut back a lot of our expenses. We got cash cars. We moved in with my girl's mom for a year to save up to buy a house. Like these are, once again, things that people aren't willing to do. Like we lived in two bedrooms, like a family of three, you know what I mean? Just so we could, live off of, $1,000 a month so we could save the rest. Like these little things. And like by doing that 1 year, it was HE double, like it was hell, man. It was bad. But that 1 year probably put us ahead probably 8 to 10 years by being humble enough to sell our cars, to live with her mom. And, we bought a house. I have over 100 grand in equity in a house that I bought a year and a half ago. And it's like by doing these things to set myself up, I think those were the fundamentals, right?
Yeah, I really appreciate what you just said. It made me think of, so I have a leadership coach, and he told me about this thing he called the issue. So it's, we're always comparing, and so it's, you want something, you look at someone else's thing and you want something that's nicer, bigger, fancier, newer. And so, but it's just a comparison, and it doesn't, and the crazy thing is, and I've talked to plenty of people that have made millions and millions, like tens, literally hundreds of millions of dollars. And, the guy who bought the beach house, the mansion and the Ferrari at 25, and then he got depressed because it didn't give him what he thought it was going to, and it didn't mean anything. And so like, it's just, that stuff isn't what makes you happy. Like, yeah, it's nice. Sure, it's nice. But does it make you happy? Does it lead to fulfillment? Does it give you meaning? Not at all. Like, in no way does it. And so, like, I'm really glad that you have that mindset and that perspective, because it's so easy to get caught up in that, especially today with social media, when you see all these guys standing in front of their Lamborghini, in front of their mansion, on their private jet, like all this garbage that really just doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, I agree. And for me, I think being from a small town, I'm a very humble person. Like I always thought my cap, in life would be like I make six figures, I own a couple of rental properties. And it's like I've done that like 2 years ago. You know what I mean? So like I always say everything from here on out is extra. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm going hard. I want to see what I'm going to become as a person. But it's like we're about to hit our first 6-figure month. So it's like I've still been thinking small, like how can I get to 1 million a month and like all these things. But it's like you have to still, it doesn't matter how much money you make if you don't have that happiness, like working on yourself, the relationship with my girl, becoming parents, like we just had another daughter, starting that over, being with an entrepreneur, like working on yourself is way more important. And I heard that in the Robert Kiyosaki interview the other day, is like the most important piece of real estate is between your two ears. And like if you don't work on that and what's inside and the people around you and the relationships that truly matter, you're just going to end up with a lot of money and broken. If that's what you want, I mean, no friends, like broken relationship currency. And it's like, if that's what you want, that's totally fine. But it's no, like for me, I always wanted to be the person who had money. And like, if our friends did something and I can cover it, or like just them to have that experience, like that matters more to me. Like money is just provides freedom. And that's, for me, that's all I wanted. That's all I've ever wanted, right? Like I said, I don't do good with authority. I want to be at all my kids' games. I want my wife to, if she wants to stay home and shop or, build something or whatever she wants to do, like that's freedom. And how I get that freedom is through real estate and money, and which started with wholesaling, which is crazy.
Yeah, man. So, so wholesaling, flipping, rentals, all that, like after all these lessons you've learned, what do you feel like you're really good at right now?
My superpower, I think, is building relationships with people, which is ironic because I'm an introvert. I grew up an only child. Like I've always been good by myself, but I have this really good talent of building relationships with people. I think teaching them, whether it's real estate or life, and then also getting stuff done, right? Like in our business, I am when shit hits the fan, like I'm that guy, right? Like if there's a problem, I will get the problem solved, right? I'm also a little bit more straight edge than my partner. He's the nicest guy I've ever met, which is great, but in business, feelings do not matter. So I'm the hammer, right? Like I'm getting stuff done, getting deals closed, like that's my strength. And creating deals, like I said, out of JV partnerships or social media. But I think really getting things done and getting deals closed and disposition, that's probably my strong suit, because I love meeting people and sitting down to get deals. Like I just, met with the seller. I truly enjoy that. But like, if you ask me to do a cold call, even on like a warm lead, like that, they're probably ready to sell, I start getting anxious. Like I hate it. But if I had to go meet a stranger and talk with them in person, I would be good. But, I know my strengths and my weaknesses. I know, I think as you do this more, you become self-aware. So it's like hiring people to do the things that you hate to do. I hate creating social media posts. I love posting. So I just hired a VA to do it. Right. So it's like just figuring out these things. And unless you start making more money, you can't buy that freedom. So yeah, those are probably like my strengths though.
Awesome. So sort of leading into something you just brought up. So what do you struggle with right now that you're trying to work on?
Giving up more. It's such a double-edged sword, but giving up more because I am a control freak, right? Because I always been by myself. Learning that my time is not best spent doing certain things, right? So like I have somebody creating social media posts, but now I need somebody to write those posts and plan them out rather than me spend a couple hours doing it. I need to probably hire an assistant very, very soon, just with everything that I have going on. But that would be it. Stepping away more would be my weakness, because I'm so hands-on. We run a smaller operation because, we want low overhead so we can keep a majority of the profits to just dump back into real estate. So I think just bringing on more people, but also finding those people, because Ben and I are such, wholesome people, sometimes we hold others to our expectation and we're always let down. And because we're such nice people, even though I'm very like red personality, I still have a good heart and I try to see the best in people, even when they, take advantage of me. But I think if I had that barrier in between, right, I wouldn't even have to deal with that. If it was just somebody that they're hired, to just, cut and dry. I think that's what I need help with the most, to be honest.
That's so cool. And then, so you mentioned you have 11 deals pending now, but then you also mentioned that you have a smaller operation. So like, what does your team look like currently?
Yeah, so it's mainly me and my business partner, Ben, and then we have 4 or 5 VAs. He handles the majority of that side of the business, but I think we have 4 cold callers, maybe 5. We have another lead manager. And then I have a few contractors that I manage, basically like 3 GCs, depending on the project. A lot of the houses we're getting now, or at least the last couple ones, have been in great condition. So we're just like flipping them to hedge funds. We're not really doing a lot of work. So I'm not having to manage as many people, which is good. But we try to keep it very, very lean. We don't have an office. We work from home. We try to utilize the VA method. We go to, a majority of our appointments. I probably need to hire a runner or assistant. Like I said, like it's just, there's only so many places that I can be at a time, but we try to keep it very small and manageable.
Awesome. And then, so how are you choosing which positions to hire next? Like,
Gotcha. So right now it's just what is the one thing that I hate the most and that I don't want to do? Like right now, one of the things that I hate doing the most is I hate setting up utilities for flips. It drives me insane. And I always have to call. It takes me like 30 minutes out of my day, but it is the most mentally exhausting thing. So I look at like things like that I can just either have my girl do or hire an assistant to do for me. And because even on a flip recently, I we bought a hoarder house and the utilities hadn't been connected, and I just left it on the back burner. Well, that kind of shot me in the foot because the house had been had been vacant for so long, and that it just snowballed into a bigger deal. And it was just like, if I had somebody to just take care of this, like this would have stopped before the domino got this big in the equation. So really just looking at things of like, I don't want to do, or that are mentally taxing, or I just don't like to do, really.
Yep. I feel you, man. Giving up control is probably one of the hardest things for an entrepreneur, because that's like why we got into business, right? Like we wanted the control. We wanted to determine what's happening with our lives. And so like giving up control, that is probably one of the biggest issues that entrepreneurs face. So I am right there with you, man. So we're gonna open it up for our students who are live on this call. Anyone who's here now would be the perfect time to post a question in the chat box. We can dig into those. Anything, Derrick's done, over 100 deals now. We have wholesaling experience, rental experience, flipping experience. He's had the ups and downs. I mean, this pro on social media. I need to learn a thing or two from him. I have more questions about that. If I think we should talk offline about that stuff. But let's see. So we have, how do you decide what to flip, wholesale, keep, and when you get it under contract? How do you make that decision?
Gotcha. So it usually starts with the criteria of the house. So we have a very simple criteria when it comes to flipping. ARV of 350,000 and under. Typically, we want to be purchasing those at $200,000 and under. Minimum 1.5 bath. So as I go through that checklist, I'm like, will this work as flipping it? Then I also look at the seller, right? What is the situation with the seller? What are they trying to accomplish? Is it going to be easy to wholesale? If not, let's look at also what is going to be the risk versus reward versus time. So I'm a very lazy person. Like I told you, I'm a very lazy flipper as well. So if I can flip a property as is and make at least 30 to 40,000, that is a win for me, right? And I want to do that multiple times a month. I'm not going to try to go super fancy and change the layout of the home. Most of the homes that we're buying, they need to be in an HOA. It needs to be simple. I'm just going in, carpet, paint, granite, the simple stuff. So that's kind of how we look at it. And then if it's a really good deal, I'm trying to be more aggressive on purchasing more homes and keeping for my portfolio as well. It kind of got sidetracked this year because we had this crazy idea to start, this Airbnb business, and we went from 0 houses to 8 within like 6 months. And that kind of opened up a whole new thing. But, looking at keeping more also for depreciation, but I just kind of look at the numbers versus risk versus reward. And if I can burr it and, have a bunch of equity or pull equity out, we'll look at keeping it. If it's in that Fifth Ward area, obviously we're trying to buy multi units there. So if it's something like that and the numbers make sense, we'll keep it. And then if it's an HOA and like I said, it's under that certain criteria, we'll go ahead and flip it. And like I said, majority of the ones, that we're doing now, we're just flipping to a hedge fund or open door or just relisting it as is, just to get that quick in and out. Cause I also want to, when I use my lender's money, I want to turn it quickly. I want them to get a good return, so that we can keep buying more and more.
Oh, I was muted. Yeah, absolutely. Here's another one. For building your social media following, you do anything specific that has worked really well, or is it just about posting consistently?
I think it's going to depend on the format, right? With Instagram, things have definitely changed since I first started. It was a lot easier, and I wish I would have went a lot harder at the beginning to grow. I think being consistent, making real good content, you can always ask your followers, right? Like, what do you guys want to see from me? But also there is like, the algorithm likes certain things. We're real big, TikTok has took off, which I love. I learn a lot and I post a lot there, but it's a different format, right? Anybody can go viral on TikTok if you have good content, you plan it out right. Well, Instagram wants to compete with that. So Reels have been really instrumental in my growth recently, but they also want to see that, when you're posting the Reels, you're also posting regular stories and you're posting on your timeline as well. So it's, being consistent on all those platforms, and a lot of the stuff I'm repurposing, whether it's a reel or a story to that's the beautiful thing about doing social media is like once you start recording yourself, you're going to realize how much content you have and just start kind of like simplifying it. But I think consistency is the biggest part, and adding value to people, right? So many people are getting the look at me. How about you just try to lead with value? Hey, this is how you can save 10 grand in a year. Hey, this is how you can flip a house. Hey, like things like that. So I think by adding value, being consistent, and then learning the algorithms for, the tool that you're using, right? The one that I haven't figured out yet is YouTube, which I'm learning, but I think also I haven't been consistent on it, right? I drop a video every couple of months, whereas like now I'm trying to do 2 videos a week. So it's a lot different, but that content is then chopped up for other platforms as well, so that makes it easier. So just trying to streamline things and be consistent and add value.
Very cool. All right, awesome. Got another one here. How do you go about finding your hedge fund buyers?
A lot of those have came from either relationships, or honestly they reached out to us. Like what happens here in Houston typically is we have some local hedge funds, and then there's other people coming into the market because I think Houston has been so affordable for so long. And a lot of times what they'll do is they'll just pull data, or they'll go to networking groups, or they'll just reach out to you. Like one of our hedge fund buyers, they followed up with my business partner for like a year and a half, and finally it was like, hey, let's just talk to them. And now we've sold them like 4 houses, and some of the prices that they're paying, they're not always the highest buyer, but the deal is going to get done if they purchase it. But I think constantly networking, you could also always pull records and skip trace, but it's a little harder with hedge funds like that. But relationships is key for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, here we go. How would you handle an offer from a buyer with a contingency, specifically on tenants' leases being bumped up before closing?
Gotcha. I'm assuming meaning bumped up as in like renewing or just getting rid of the lease. But I think any contingency, it can be handled. I think if they're selling the home, though, they shouldn't, unless there's a lease in place, shouldn't be necessarily as worried about the tenant if they're leaving. I would just kind of work with the seller and see what their expectations are and how you can make it a win-win for the tenant. A lot of times when we have tenants in place, we try to do a cash for keys, or we try to do like a lease back, or we'll help them. We have paid for movers. We always start out light, like we'll connect you with some movers and follow up. And then when they're like, oh, well, I can't afford it. Okay, what can you afford? And then we go it's just negotiations as normal. But I think just being of service, right? And then I always let them know when we buy a home with the tenant, in the nicest way possible, I let them know that they have to go. But I usually state it as, hey, look, we just bought this house. You see the condition it's in. They agree. They take a look around. We're going to be starting construction. From our history, what we've learned is it's usually pretty hard. I don't know if you've ever lived in a house, what's been worked on, it's not good. You probably don't want to hear hammers at 7 a.m. They're like, hey, I agree. What if I put $1,000 in your pocket and helped you with a new place? They're happy to do it. And, coming in as a third party is always best, right? Dealing with them directly, because then it takes the pressure off the landlord looking like a bad person. And it's like, hey, I don't know your all situation. I'm just trying to help everybody involved. And they really respect that. And then sometimes, you're going to have ones that don't want to leave, and you try to work with them and you try to help them, and they're just stubborn. And unfortunately, you will have to evict them. I had eviction court yesterday with a house that we bought, and it's a gentleman. And, we were working with the seller. He was going to get like 5 to 10 grand and get moved. And it was just a childhood house. And, he was the sibling that didn't have his stuff together, and he didn't want to leave. And unfortunately, after 2 months of making payments and I've offered you everything that I can and you don't want to leave, I have to do what I have to do to protect my investment. So, that's the sad reality of real estate, but the neighborhood's going to get improved. The tenant that's there, the brother is not the best person, that's just the reality. A lot of people that we deal with aren't in the best situations, right? And that's just the reality of the business. But if you can come in as a helping hand and be a genuine person, and create a win-win for everybody, I don't know any other business that you can do that, right? I really don't, where you can create so many wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that. All right, we'll do one last one. So on your flips, do you use private money or hard money, or do you use your own funds?
So, as many as we're buying, obviously I'm having to pull out some of my funds, just based on what were the buying criteria. Like I said, a lot of the homes, like the house that we just bought, it's like an 80% deal, but it's an amazing deal. We're going to put like 5-10 grand into it. But we do use private money. I started with hard money and, built that relationship. Then, networking, I met another individual, and then my best lender was actually when I was wholesaling. I had a deal fall apart probably like 4 years ago, and I took his earnest money, right? This goes back to being a good person. The title company, they screwed me over, to keep it light, and I lost like 10 grand on that deal. But I gave him his money back and he followed my journey, right? Because of social media. Well, when we started doing flips and rentals, he was my insurance guy because that's what he does. And then we bid on the same house one time when I got into flipping. And he was like, hey, if you ever get any more of these, I'll lend on them. And then so we bought a bunch of houses. With him, and over the last year, it's been good. And then recently, he gives us everything up front, but we bought like 1 week, we bought like 6 houses, and he was like, hey, I'm kind of hit my max. Well, wealthy people, they know wealthy people, right? So, he was able to introduce me to, another lady who's we've have 4 houses with right now, and that's working out. And that's when you really start to scale as a flipper. I know it might be a little bit more advanced for some people, but when you can start getting 100% of the purchase and the rehab up front, and like, that's when it really starts to like take off. And but you have to give people a track record. That's why social media is so important.
Absolutely. Yeah, those relationships become everything at a certain point, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Derrick, what can our listeners do to help support you?
Bring me deals if you're in Houston. I always say, and I tell people this, I say that jokingly, but I'm so serious, because when people message me on social media, they're always like, mentor me or let me pick your brain. I'm sure you get the same. And I always tell people the exact same thing. And it's what my mentor told me: bring me a deal, right? I'm a very fair person. I think if you wanted to benefit me, not only would it benefit yourself, but if you're in Houston and you have a deal or a seller, I will help you lock up the deal. I'll help you dispo it or flip it, whatever you want to do, but I will make sure you get paid, because I love seeing other people make money, man. And I know if you're making money, I'm making money. And sometimes, people make more than me and I make less. Sometimes I make more, they make less, but regardless, I think that's the best thing. That, or go subscribe to my YouTube, because I'm dropping a lot of content, putting a lot of time and money into that. But just by being a fan, following kind words, and bring me a deal, I think I'm a pretty simple guy.
Awesome. And so what would be the best way for people to reach you?
Probably Instagram, just flipping a house, one word. And just shoot me a DM, or even if you hear this recording and you like it, just share it, tag me, just support everything that we're all doing. I think people take advantage and they don't realize how much information is readily available that could change your life. And it wasn't like this when I started. I'm sure the same with you guys. I think it was like Sean Terry, and that was really it, so, and he's still doing it, but it's I think, like I said, going back to how I started, is when people see people that look like us, whether they look like you, they're a minority, they look like me, whatever it is, they see the tattoos, if you can relate with somebody, it starts to become more real and achievable.
Yeah, definitely. Being that this is Real Estate Heroes, if you were a superhero, which one would you be?
Oh, a Ninja Turtle for sure. For
right
sure.
on.
I have, I mean, even I have a Ninja Turtle back here, man. I love Ninja Turtles. Definitely Michelangelo too, if you're curious which one. But
Nice.
like I'm a huge Ninja Turtles fan. But you know, I've watched all the Marvels. So obviously I have a 10-year-old, he's about to be 10 son. We've watched every Marvel thing you can think of under the sun. But yeah, definitely Michelangelo for sure. Ninja Turtle.
Awesome. All right, Derrick, man, I want to thank you for being here, sharing your stories, your lessons. I know we're all better for it. I learned a lot myself. So super grateful for you. Everybody who's joining and listening in, thank you for listening. If you got value out of this, then please like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends. And I also want to make sure you grow from this. So just pick one thing from today and take action on it right now. As soon as you're done listening, just do one thing to move in the right direction. Make a call, schedule the meeting, write something down to remind yourself about doing it. Just do something. It's the only way you're going to grow is by taking action. So go out and take action. Signing off, this is Dan Bro, along with my co-host, Matt Bruner with Real Estate Heroes.